Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Raider Maven, joined by my co-conspirator in crime for many, many years. We did a weekly podcast. It stopped the last week before the regular season. So much went on, but it's back. We're glad to have him. He's our buddy, the editor and publisher of the Spun.com, the one and only, the great Matt Holatic. Matt, how are you, bud?
Hondo, I am very happy to be back on with you and looking forward to a great NFL offseason.
I'll tell you what, I felt bad for you. We were going to do this Thursday, but I was traveling, was caught in a blizzard, and the internet was horrible. Then Saturday, and you were not feeling good. So I'm glad we're back. It's a Monday. Everybody's feeling good. And let's get into the topic at hand. As you know, the Raiders have moved on from Derek Carr. We broke that story about, them benching him the last two games of the year, moving on. And we're not here to revisit Derek Carr, but what we are here to do is talk about the Raiders moving forward. Tom Brady was the guy that they wanted. It was Tom's Brady's job if he wanted it, and he didn't. They want Aaron Rodgers, and if the Green Bay Packers are reasonable, and if he's reasonable, we're going to get into what reasonable means. They want him, and he'll be a Raider. And I'm not a big fan of that move. And if I'm a Raider, now I understand you and I are not fans; we're journalists. So when I use the term fan, I'm not for that move, and we're going to talk openly about why. Even though there's a great chance Aaron Rodgers is going to get the job, I've had a couple of my colleagues say, "Why would you do that podcast?" And you're going to take a chance to alienate him. I'm not, because it's not personal. But I want to get into this. Aaron Rodgers is a really good quarterback. No one's doubting that. I think this year, if you looked in the NFL, who are the best quarterbacks? I think you're clearly going to look at Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes is one certainly that's going to be there. I think Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. To me, those are the five best quarterbacks in the National Football League this year. But when you look at those guys and you look at all of them and their different skill sets, to me, of those five, the one guy the Raiders don't want and shouldn't want is Aaron Rodgers. And we're going to get into that today. Well, first of all, as an overview, and we're going to get more specific, what is your initial thoughts when you think about the opportunity of the Raiders possibly adding Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I think that the Raiders have made it clear last offseason, coming off the playoffs, they hired Josh McDaniels. They were looking to contend. Um, they they take a step back in 2022. Now they're moving on from Derek Carr, but they're not rebuilding. They still want to contend with the roster they have. They still want to be a factor in the AFC playoff race. So if you're going to move on from Derek Carr, who's a good quarterback, you better make sure that the guy that you're getting is an upgrade. Now, Tom Brady would have been an upgrade, even in his mid 40s. He's not, he's declined a little bit physically from what he was in his prime, but he's still really good. He's still better than Derek Carr, but he's
Yep.
officially retired. Aaron Rodgers, again, a little bit down from what we've seen him, had some injuries, but I still think talent wise is better than Derek Carr. The issue that you're
Agreed.
looking at with acquiring Aaron Rodgers is how will he fit in with your team, fit in with your locker room. You know you'll have some of the excess kind of baggage, the all the things that come with having Aaron Rodgers around. Now, one thing I think, and we can get into this more, that may help the Raiders if they do land Aaron Rodgers is having Devontae Adams, a guy that he is really tight with and has a good connection with, not just obviously on the field, but off it, could help ease that transition.
I want to dig into that a little bit because, as you know, we've been friends for how many years? I mean, literally almost 10.
Yeah,
And
it's getting up there.
and you are well aware of my connections to people around the league. I have friends that have played with Aaron Rodgers. And there's some things that come with Aaron Rodgers that I think are fair to discuss. First of all, you have a guy that doesn't do anything wrong. And so when things don't go his way, he points the finger. Now, that's not the new Raider way. The new Raider way is we're all a team. You keep everything in house. Everybody shuts up. This is a guy that's going to go on Pat McAfee's show. Now, let me tell you, as a journalist that covers his team, I'd love to have him here because him on Pat McAfee is going to create a ton of
Oh yeah.
content for me. Okay. But so I'm not speaking about this from Hondo, but you're going to bring a guy in that, this team does not like it when The Raider way is not do it your way. And you're going to bring that in. You're going to bring a guy in that every year seems to waffle. Is he here or is he not here? You're going to bring in a guy that in the locker room, he's going to have the people that he likes, and the people that he doesn't like are going to almost be like they don't exist. And again, not the Raider way. You're going from a quarterback like Derek Carr, and we're not here to rehash Derek, who got along with just about everybody, who was a guy that was a buffer between management and ownership and the team. And you're going to bring in a guy that's it's all me. Now, you can be that way. I'm not ripping him. But the point is, it's to me, it's just not a culture fit. And if you're Josh McDaniels and you are Dave Ziegler, and I've already reported if 2023 looks like 2022, there
Mhm.
won't be a 2024. And if you know that, are you willing to risk your future? Now, the upside, I mean, the downside is you've got Devontae Adams, who you've seen the video when I asked him point blank, if the Raiders get you a proven guy that can get you the football, do you want to stay a Raider? He said, absolutely. But he went on and talked about wanting to, be part of the process. I don't know that Devontae Adams is going to be sold on a rookie. He took less money to be here. He doesn't want to be part of a rebuild program. So there's a lot of concerns. Break down what we just talked about Aaron off the field, would you?
Right. And listen, nobody enjoys him on the Pat McAfee show probably more than us at the Spun. We write about multiple things he says every week on there. But as fun as that may be from a content standpoint, do you want your franchise guy on there every week talking about things and, you know, being open about not just football topics, but all field stuff and life and politics and anything during the season and even in the offseason? Some teams may not want that. Now, the Packers kind of, they had to deal with it. Rodgers has been their guy forever. So that's what he was going to do. So you have to worry about that. You also have to worry about, like you said, how does he kind of fit into a new locker room coming from Green Bay, where he's been the man for so long. Now he's entering a new team space. He obviously has that comfort level, like we said, with Devontae Adams, but uh, it's still 53, 50 something other guys that he's going to have to kind of acclimate himself to. Now,
Right. Oh,
to get, I'm
good.
sorry, to get to your last point, you mentioned about how critical 2023 is. And we know how the NFL goes by like that. Things change in a heartbeat. I think that it probably is worth the risk for the Raiders if you're Ziegler and you're Josh McDaniels, because you need to have a big year. And I don't know if you're having a big year if, say, you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, or if you bring in a Ryan Tannehill or some of these other names that are being mentioned as being available in the open market.
All right. I want to talk to you about another area because I do think you're right. Now, Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler have a boss, and that boss very much like Tom Brady. That boss respected and liked Derek Carr, the man. But I've also made it clear he was not a fan of Derek Carr, the quarterback. And I believe, and I want to look at this for a minute, and I reported this at the very beginning and reported it publicly, and Josh McDaniels never once batted an eye when I asked him about it. They wanted Derek Carr. The Patriots wanted Derek Carr when they thought he was available before when John Gruden was here. They came in and gave him a deal with his no trade clause. Where 3 days after the Super Bowl, they have to make the decision because they expected him to be here. It did not work. It didn't help that they had an owner that probably, uh, it was known he was not, Derek Carr was not his favorite quarterback. Again, not speaking disparagingly, Mark Davis didn't hate Derek Carr in the least bit, but neither did Josh hate Derek or Dave or Derek them. It just didn't work. If you're them, here's my question to you. I have said all along, if you were going to rebuild, then do you go sign Devontae Adams to the contract he has because he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild? Do you um, why would you have brought Derek Carr in back for 1 year? So there's a lot of people talking about they need to go get a rookie. Now, to me, If you can't find that guy, you go to your people and say, listen, I know we said it's not a rebuild and we got a lot of pieces around here, but this is where we're at. We thought we had to move on from Derek. We just didn't think he could get us to the next level. But here's XYZ rookie that we believe in, whatever. If you get rid of Derek Carr and you don't bring in Aaron or Tom, okay, you're going to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is basically Derek Carr. Now, he's a great guy, just like Derek is. Nobody dislikes Jimmy Garoppolo, but he has basically Derek's talent. And the only thing different is that Derek was always available and Jimmy is hardly ever available. So to me, if you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo and you roll the dice, the moment Jimmy gets hurt next year, first story I'm writing is, I told you so. And I'm telling everybody right now that's the article I'm going to write because that's his track record. It's just like when they brought in Jerry Tillery and he goes and makes a big mistake in a game. Well, if you had followed his career, you kind of knew remember when he slapped the ball out of the
Yeah.
guy's hand,
Mm-hmm.
you know that's what he does. Good guy. I like him a lot. Good player. But at times, mental breakdown. So you knew what you're getting. I don't think you bring in, and dear God, you don't bring in Ryan Tannehill. Where did you pull that out of your butt, Halatic? I mean, that
Well,
makes no
he's
sense.
in New York. It's the quarterbacks that are being discussed for the Jets are Carr, Rodgers, and then that next tier is Garoppolo and Tannehill.
I
I
keep
think if they
hearing
bring in,
Garoppolo to the Jets.
I think if they bring in Tannehill, I think your son will have a lot of fun with you at your expense if that happens. If the Raiders do
Oh, he doesn't like Tannehill, does he?
that, we know that.
So now I want to go back because we're gonna circle back to Aaron, but this is really important. I reported at the very beginning months ago, Tommy, you can go look at it, it's there, about Mac Jones. Now I really like Mac Jones. To me, if you can get Mac Jones, that's it's better than going after a rookie if you're committed to the Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler system. And here's why. Under Josh McDaniels, he was an all-pro as a rookie. He played really well. Last year he didn't, but let's be honest. Was it Matt Patricia? Was it Joe Judge? Who's your quarterback coach? And neither of them are offensive guys. I don't know. And now I took him off my list of potentials because I was told by someone with direct knowledge that once they hired Bill O'Brien, Mac Jones was not available. If that changes and Mac becomes available, then to me, if you're not getting Aaron or you're not going to get Tom Brady, Mac Jones is the guy. But we talked a lot there. We dissected a lot. Your thoughts on all that?
I would agree with that. I would, excuse me, I would much rather have Mac Jones coming into play under Josh McDaniels than a Garoppolo or a vet like that, a stopgap guy, because you can, you have Mac Jones for a couple more years of team control. You think you can win with him. He already has that rapport with Josh McDaniels. I think he would be the next best option if the Patriots are going to make him available. I do agree with you. If they're bringing in Bill O'Brien, who has that familiarity with him from Alabama, excuse me, I'm sorry, still dealing with the cold here. If they're bringing in Bill O'Brien, and he has that familiarity with Mac Jones, they're probably banking on Mac Jones being their guy, at least for a few more years.
Yeah.
For me, I think the Raiders have kind of put themselves in a position, and it's not apples to apples, but it's, again, referring what I've said about the Jets in New York. They're in a position where they need to get a splash. They need to get a veteran guy who is going to be able to, they're going to be able to compete with and make some noise with. And I think that Tom Brady would have been best fit for the Raiders. Unless he comes out of retirement again, which never rule it out with Tom Brady, but I don't think it's happening. I think they have to try for Aaron Rodgers, and you have to roll the dice, even if you're worried about some of the outside stuff or what might happen. I think you almost have to go with him and say we're going to take a shot on talent winning out.
All right, so let's talk about this for a minute. There's a lot of people saying if they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to give up a one. To me, if and I want to go back and said something powerful there. Then you roll the dice, and you're a GM and a coach that's not in a place of strength. you're in a position of trouble, and you go out and do that, and it doesn't work. And let's be honest, even if they go out and pick the next great Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL draft, he's still going to be a rookie. There's still going to be a lot of issues, and you're gonna risk your future on a rookie. That's to me tenuous at best and not smart. Now, I want to give them the benefit of a doubt. And I know right now in Raider Nation, if you give Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels any benefit of a doubt, you get crucified because that's not popular. But they have an owner too. And if they have an owner that says, no,
Mhm.
we're moving on, or this is what we're going to do, they don't have a lot of choices. I don't think Dave Ziegler and
No,
Josh McDaniels are dumb at all. In fact, I respect their football mind. Josh has to prove it on the field as a coach because as of now, that's something that he hasn't done in Las Vegas, but it was only year one. I have a lot of respect for Dave Ziegler because of people I know around the league who think very, very highly of him. But if you got an owner saying this is what you're going to do, you got to do it. So let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. If you've got to give up your one, your number 7, I don't make that move. I don't make that move at all. It's too high of a pick. It's too much of a foundational pick. And if you got Aaron Rodgers coming saying, well, I may play 1 or 2 more years, you don't waste a number 7 pick on a guy for 1 or 2 years. Do you disagree with that?
I think it depends on how committed you are if you're say you're Mark Davis, the owner, into believing that you can contend over these next 1 or 2 years, and how much you're willing to again roll the dice. We're talking about Vegas here, that you have to put that type of product out on the field for your fan base. If you think that, listen, we're a quarterback away in a really good division with the best quarterback in the NFL of being a Super Bowl contender, then you might have to make that move. But if you feel like, our roster isn't exactly where we want it to be yet, you can get a pretty good player with that 7th overall pick. You can add to your defense, which was a big issue last year. You could add
Right tackle?
right tackle. You can add, if you wanted to go with a rookie quarterback, you could certainly either find one there or trade up a couple spots if you're willing to. Might even be able to find another playmaker there for whichever quarterback you have with you currently. But to me, I think that if you're moving on from Derek Carr, I feel like that signifies, and again, you're more tied into the inner workings of the Raiders, but just looking at from the outside and looking at how the Raiders operate, I think to me that signifies we are going full speed ahead to get the best veteran quarterback in as possible and try to make a run at this in the next couple of years.
All right, a couple more things on Aaron, and then I want to talk Raiders with you. But here's the deal with Aaron Rodgers. I'm not denying the guy's won Super Bowls. I'm not denying that. I mean, he's constantly getting to double-digit winning seasons. Agree with all of that. No argument. That's factual. But you got a guy that recently a report surfaced where Green Bay is disgusted and ready to move on. That's not a quote. That's a paraphrase. I'm sure you saw the same article that I did.
Yeah, Bob
To
McGinn.
me, I'm sorry.
Bob
I'm sorry.
McGinn was the guy that
Yeah,
did.
yeah. Tell
Yeah,
me. Yeah,
Bob McGinn was the old writer. Yep.
yeah. And he's the guy who's tied into that team. He knows what's going on with that team. And all of a sudden now you got an interesting scenario. I know how this league works, and so do you. I 100% believe that story is Green Bay letting people know, hey, we're ready to move on from Aaron if he comes out of his dark retreat, ready to move on. So I think there's an element there that they want to move on. And okay, fine. You know what? We'll let Aaron go and we'll take 2 twos, whatever, which I still think would be too high. But what we're willing to make a move because we're willing to go. So if they're reasonable, the Raiders are going to be players. Then reports surfaced, and it was that, hey, if he comes back, he would be willing to probably rework his deal a little bit to be more favorable to the team. So I think he's sending up a smoke signal saying, hey, when I come back, I may be willing to redo some stuff. So to me, there's a lot of things on the Green Bay side that needed to be said. But then I think there's also some things. Um, coming out of the Raider building, hey, maybe we're not as interested, which to me is them trying to drive the cost of a deal down with Green Bay. How many people are going to have the cap room and everything else to take your guy? You better be reasonable. Here is my point to you. If Green Bay's reasonable and he wants to come here, he's going to be a Raider. What are your thoughts? Should the Raiders get Aaron Rodgers? Should they go with a rookie? What is your sentiment?
To me, I think with the roster that they have, the way they've approached the last couple of seasons, last couple of off seasons, I think that their best option is to go get that best veteran available, and that's Aaron Rodgers right now. I think Tom Brady was the best fit, like we said. Aaron Rodgers is by far the best quarterback on the market. The second best quarterback is the guy that they just got rid of, so you can't get him. So I think it's Aaron Rodgers or bust, unless there's a major, change of course within the Raiders organization to how they view themselves next year and in the future, where they think they're going into a rebuild. And if that's the case, then they're blowing it up. They're looking for a trade partner for Devontae Adams. They're going to move some other veterans. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think the way you've been reporting things, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
No, and here's the other thing that you made a great point. If they go get Aaron, and let's talk about Aaron for a minute. Again, gets to the double digit wins a lot, didn't this year, but he's a guy that I think is clearly his skill set is not what it used to be. Now, let's be honest, like Tom Brady, neither one of them is their skill set what it used to be, and they're both two of the elite. Now, we're not bringing in
Right.
Joe Burrow, we're not talking Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, because neither of them is going to get away. Lamar Alexander, again, I think Lamar Alexander, when we were talking about top five quarterbacks, I mean, I think he's a great quarterback, but I just don't see Baltimore letting that kind of a franchise quarterback go and be traded. And even if the Raiders can get him, and again, I think he's a great quarterback, he doesn't fit the Josh McDaniels system. So it doesn't make sense to go get a guy. If this is your system, it doesn't make sense. But let's talk about Aaron. You're getting a lot of diminishing returns. Yeah, they're in the playoffs. He's had better defenses than he's going to have here in Green Bay. I mean, here in Las Vegas. Now, they're going to try to fix that in the draft and free agency. But as of the time of this filming, he's underperformed in the playoffs. I know, but he still gets there. We're talking about home losses with a better roster than he has right now here. There's a lot of questions about diminishing returns there. Does that concern you or no?
I think you also have to look all about that when you look at the division he's coming into. He's coming into a better division and he's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Vikings won a division this year, and the Lions actually had a surprising season. I think they're on a right track, and the Bears at least have Justin Fields to build on. But you go into the AFC West, you have the Chiefs and the Chiefs. Mahomes is Mahomes. The Chargers, as long as they have Herbert and that talent on that roster, they're going to be in the mix. I think the Broncos, they can't be any worse than they were this year. So it's a tough division. So I think there is some concern about that, but I think that you look at what I think is overrides that is you're the Raiders and you're looking at, okay, this is what we had. This is what we could have with Aaron Rodgers. What we can get is above what we had in terms of Derek Carr and what our ceiling is. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that will override any concerns you might have of diminishing playoff returns or, you know, the loss to the Lions this year in week 18 where they were winning in, losing to the Niners in the divisional round last year. So I think that stuff will be outweighed by uh, the desire for the team to raise its ceiling.
All right. I want to talk about Jarrett Stidham with you for a minute because I think this is a interesting. I get so much email and tweets from people. Why is nobody talking about Jarrett Stidham? Well, first of all, they knew he was coming into the end of his deal this year and did nothing to extend him. So clearly they didn't have belief in him as a long-term guy. I still think they're going to try to re-sign him as a backup because he was good. But if they had thought there was long-term viability in this guy, they would have signed him when he first got here because it would have been a heck of a lot cheaper. Number two, Derek was injured twice this year for one play, and they send in Jarrett Stidham, who hands the ball off. Now, I talked with numerous NFL executives, and you know that I know them because of our friendship off of the camera, who said to me, if they thought there was any chance, these guys know how to tell a trainer, hey, take a couple extra minutes and look at Derek. They would have let him throw the ball. They would have let him run some plays. They did none of that. And every NFL guy I've talked to has said, that's a clear indicator. This is not our guy. And then after the season, when he was still asked about Jarrett Stidham, Josh McDaniels, you know, you know, and you know that answer when you get it from a coach.
Yep.
To me, I understand fans who maybe like what they see in Jarrett or think he's cheaper. But when you read the tea leaves on the coach and administration, if they end up going into next year with him as their head guy, I can guarantee you that was not the plan, and they're disappointed. Your thoughts?
I agree. And you're also probably looking at a different brain trust in 2024 if that happens, because I don't think they're winning enough with him as the guy. To me, Jarrett Stidham was the classic case of a new coach coming in. He has a guy that he feels comfortable with from having worked with him in New England. He knows the system. He knows how the coach operates. The coach McDaniels knows what Stidham can and can't do. He's a good guy to have in the QB room. He's a good guy to have in support of your starter because of that experience that he brings. And I think that's kind of where it ends. You know, if he has to make a spot start, not at the end of the year because the Raiders were out of contention. They were kind of just, they made it clear they were done with Derek Carr there. But if your starter gets hurt in week 4, he pulls his hamstring, he has to miss a game, you could live with Jarrett Stidham starting a game or two. But he's not a guy that you're looking to at this point in his career, build your team around and have as your starter for 17 games.
Totally agree with you. All right, I'm going to ask you for your prediction. Who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Raiders next year?
I still believe that it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I really do. Now, I will say this: the most fascinating thing for me will be if Aaron Rodgers comes out of this darkness retreat and says, "I want to come back to Green Bay," and Green Bay doesn't really want
They don't
that.
want him.
That would be an amazing storyline to follow over the next few weeks and months, however long it takes to resolve that. I would say I think the best option there. I still think it'll be Rodgers in Vegas. I think that in New York, you'll either have Derek Carr if he doesn't go to the Panthers or Saints, or Jimmy Garoppolo. And if Garoppolo isn't in New York, I can see him being a bridge QB someplace else. That'll be your big 3 QB dominoes to go this offseason in terms of the guys that are available now. There's always that wild card, if Lamar Jackson can't reach an agreement or somebody else can't reach an agreement, they could get traded. But I think those are where your QB dominoes fall for the big 3 names.
I think you would agree with me, but maybe you wouldn't. When we were talking about the top 5 quarterbacks at the beginning, obviously Tom Brady's not in the picture anymore. So if you're looking at the top 5 quarterbacks right now in the NFL, I think you got Aaron Rodgers. And not in order, but because I think Patrick Mahomes is the best. You got Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar. I think to me, those are your top 5 guys, and I don't think it's up for discussion. Do you agree with that?
I think the one name that you could put in there right now is probably Justin Herbert. I think that's the other name that you could throw in there. But and then I think after that you have Trevor Lawrence is coming on, but got to see a little bit more of him. I still do think a healthy Lamar is a top 5 guy in the league. The issue has been we haven't seen that healthy Lamar that much in the last 2 seasons.
No, and I agree. And again, I don't think Herbert's there right now. I think his coach is terrible, absolutely terrible.
Fair.
I mean, you can count on him costing them games every year, and I just think he's terrible. So until he wins more, I think he's in that Trevor Lawrence category. But I think you have to look at a Lamar and say the guy just doesn't fit the Josh McDaniels system. If you want Lamar, which I think that would be great if you wanted a Lamar Jackson, the guy's worth it. Then do you go with a coach who doesn't fit that scheme? I mean, you saw what Josh McDaniels did with Cam Newton, and I wasn't really impressed. Were you?
Well, I do think he was able to kind of utilize Cam's running skills to
Yep.
effectively, which are different than Lamar Jackson. They're two different kinds of runners.
They're not the same player.
Right. I think Lamar, especially at this point in his career and where Cam was in that last New England season, Lamar's a better passer. So there's more
Agreed.
Josh McDaniels can do there. But again, how much does Josh McDaniels want to adapt what he knows, adapt what his ideal vision is for the offense based on a Lamar Jackson, who's incredibly talented? But if you have something in mind where you're thinking, I want Tom Brady, I want Aaron Rodgers, he's a vastly different player from those guys. So,
And he's vastly different than Cam. My whole point was that Cam's another guy that doesn't fit his system.
right.
And again, I just, to me, that 2-2 isn't 4 there. But man, you get Lamar Jackson. I think that's a great move. Listen, when you join us next week, if you will, I want to talk about all of the rookies. I'm starting to get some reports in from people around the NFL telling me what they're thinking, how they're grading the quarterbacks. In fact, I talked with one guy last night who gave me a surprise first rounder. And right now, everybody's talking. I mean, it's Bryce Young, Stroud, Levitt, and he gave me a name of a guy that he thinks is third on that list ahead of Levitt. And if you don't mind, next week, can we talk about the rookie quarterbacks?
Yes. I wonder if the guy that he's saying is the guy I'm thinking of, but we can get into that next week.
Well, as soon as we stop recording, I'll tell you who it is. But
Of course.
we'll get into that. But it's interesting. I think this guy's moving up a lot of draft boards, and he's certainly an interesting player. All right, I'm Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Raider Maven. That is the great Matt Hladek, my colleague, who does such a great job, the editor and publisher of thespun.com. And again, that's really looking at Aaron Rodgers. I think we looked at every angle, Matt. Did you anything you wanted to add?
No, I think we got as much out of it as we possibly can, knowing what we know about Aaron.
And I think I agree with you. He's going to be the quarterback of the Raiders next year. All right, next week we'll talk about the rookies and what we're hearing from around the NFL. We'll see you then, everybody. Goodbye.